I'd like to welcome everyone to this session. And before we officially start, I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you guys from Yugambeh land, and to acknowledge that the land always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So I'm going to hand over quite quickly to Robert. He is our NVivo guru, who's going to be taking us through how to use it for our literature review today.
And that's where I'm working from at the moment. It's a beautiful place, and I pay my respects to the elders past and present, and look forward to see you, what happens with emerging leaders there as well. It's a pleasure to be with you. I always find it stimulating to be with other researchers and to hear their ideas and their insights, and also their puzzlings and musings. So what I hope that we can achieve today is to give you some familiarity with the basics of NVivo. NVivo is a big and growing piece of software for the management of qualitative research data. It's a really good tool. It's very complex with lots of ins and outs and its own particular language. So we'll have a look at some of that today, with the objective of being able to commence your literature review and getting all the bits of your data in place and in some sort of order, and then to be able to start the analysis, the coding of text. And then I'll, just at the end, I'll show you a way to get a really useful quick report if you need a particular summary that might be useful for you. Now, we've got 4 people here. This is a really good sized group. We should be able to really help you with your literature review. But the first thing I have to ask is, who is familiar with NVivo? I found in the last session that there were some who were quite advanced, and there were some who were total newbies to NVivo. And so the questions that were asked were at 2 different ends of the continuum. So can I ask, show of hands, who is new to NVivo? Aha. Okay, and Phil is sort of, you've used it a bit. Phil, do you want to tell us?
A while ago.
How long ago?
Oh, look, it's probably 10 years ago since I've last properly used NVivo, and even then, obviously there's a lot of changes that have gone on since then.
So it's probably NVivo 7 or NVivo 8?
Could be. Yeah,
okay. There have been a few changes since then, but the basic structure and the basic tools will be the same. So a few might just be a matter of refamiliarizing.
I didn't get to use it a lot, but I've got some ideas of the basic concepts that I used back then.
That will hold you in good stead. But the questions you might need to ask will possibly be a bit different to what the others will ask, but that's okay. Please ask them and I'll do my best to answer them. Now, Lawrence, Deb and Eugenia, am I right to assume that you have NVivo active on your machines?
Yes.
Okay, and Eugenia?
Almost.
It's still loading, is it?
Yeah, it's still loading, so I'm almost there.
Okay, you are really new to this. Okay, we can work with that. There are a couple of things that we need to talk about before we get to NVivo, and that is, if we're going to look at literature review, then we probably need to be using Endnote as well. Now, there are lots of different bibliographic software, lots of different ones that we could be using, but I'm only going to reference Endnote. The reason for doing that is, one, I haven't bothered with the others, and the main reason for that is that the library at SCU makes Endnote available to us. So I'm just going to talk about Endnote, but the processes are essentially the same. What I'm not going to do is talk about how to use Endnote. That's very much in the librarian's domain, and they provide some excellent teaching on the uses of Endnote. I know when I was doing my PhD that I went to one of the basic Endnote training sessions, found it really, really helpful. I think I've done that one twice. And then I also did the advanced one. And even still, there's lots and lots of detail in Endnote I haven't yet mastered. So really great program. and something that I'm sure you'll find very useful if you haven't already started. But can I check, who has an Endnote file for their literature? Okay, Lawrence, oh, and Lawrence as well. Now, are you saving PDFs with your Endnote entries? So each time you have a reference, you save a PDF, okay. Now, that's good for when you've got things like journal articles. It doesn't always work when you've, well, it doesn't work when you've got a book. There isn't the PDF that you can save against it. So instantly, we see that there are different types of references that are important to our studies, but they will represent, but they are represented differently in Endnote. One will have a PDF, one won't, and that will have an effect on how they're introduced and how we work with them in NVivo. Now, think about the things that you have stored there in your Endnote files. There may be, amongst those where you have got a PDF stored, some of them will be quite current journals and the PDF will be editable text. But there may be some very old things that are, for which a PDF is available, but it's non-editable text. So it depends most likely on how old the reference is that you've accessed. So some of your PDFs will be editable, some won't be. And so we'll have to work out how to deal with them in NVivo as well, so as to maximize the utility. Now, another option is that once we've started, we will need to import Endnote, and then there may be other things that, I know for myself, the librarians just this week accessed a document for me. So they've sent it to me, Robert, here's the reference, UTAS has just uploaded this old thesis, you can now access it. So I have to add that additionally and separately into my NVivo file. So my project will grow. It would be nice to say it's all done now, it's all in my Endnote file, I just pick the whole thing up and drop it into NVivo. That would be nice, but there are other things that are discovered along the way that need to be added in. So while we will create an initial project, it's something that can grow and change and evolve as we progress. And there may be different things or different tacks that suddenly you think, oh, gee, I need to add in this whole new dimension. So those things can be added. NVivo is, as I said, it's complicated, but it's incredibly flexible. If I was asked to describe what are the strengths and the advantages of using NVivo, it's that it connects things. It helps us connect, in this case, we're looking at different pieces of literature, but we could use it to connect all the different authors. We could use it to connect things that happen within different time periods, things that are of a certain class. So studies that deal only with secondary students, or studies that deal with US populations as opposed to Vietnamese populations. So all these different things can be connected in NVivo. Now, the other part of NVivo that we need to keep in mind is there's usually 2 or 3 different ways to do something. So there will be buttons that we can push on and they will activate functions, or we can just use our mouse and right click on different parts of the screen and we'll be able to do the same thing a different way. Plus, strategically, we can arrive at the same answer using some different processes within NVivo. So it's complicated. We can't explore all of it within a couple hours. I still haven't explored all of it, and I've been using NVivo for about 10 years now. And as I said at the start, it keeps growing and evolving and new tools being added in. So I will show you briefly what an Endnote file of mine looks like, and then show you what my NVivo project looks like, and just play and look at some of the concepts and some of the things within that. And then we'll turn it over to you and talk about your projects and how you might be able to bring things into an NVivo project and start the whole thing happening. Are there any questions at this point? Nope. Okay, please at any point interrupt me. Now, Katie has graciously offered to monitor the chat, but there's only 6 of us here. So if you've got a question, just turn on your microphone and ask it. At any point, interrupt me. If I haven't explained something clearly, ask me to do it again. Or if I've missed something or you've got a particular perspective, please make sure you ask so that we can make this most useful. Now, I'm suggesting that at 5 to 11, we have a 5-minute break for rehydration and whatever else needs to take place. So just a quick intermission. And we're booked in for a 2-hour session. I'm thinking, depending on how we go, we might need to leave the last 20 minutes, half hour purely for questions. Alternatively, you just ask them as we go and we work until you've had enough. Okay, everyone fine with that?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Oh, it's good when you're prepared. This is my EndNote file for literature that I've been looking at in regards to the Spanish flu pandemic. So I have been gathering data that speaks to the Spanish flu. In particular, I'm looking for articles that talk about what Spanish flu is and how it manifested and the societal changes that resulted in that time period in Australia. So Spanish flu, so it's 1918 to 1920, 1921, depending on who you read. And it's Australia and its social effects. And it's not about, you know, the medical definitions and all the symptomology. I want a little bit of that, but that's not my main focus. So I went through and did my, my literature searches through the databases. Again, I'm not going to go into all of that, but speak to the librarians. They are very, very good sources of information. I've always found them extremely helpful. So all up, I found 584 documents, and I was really shocked. I would have thought Spanish flu rated more highly, but only 584. And then I started sorting the things. I started sorting them by title. So I created another group, copied everything into the group, and then just started eliminating them when the title suggested it wasn't of interest. And then I filtered further and I started looking at those that were, I started looking at the abstracts. So I kept whittling the thing down, and then I found 3 in the end that spoke of Australian experiences directly. I've added in another 9, and there were 31 all up that were of interest to me. So what I've then done is I've saved my file, and then I've exported as an XML and saved it as the Spanish flu literature. So I've exported. I actually highlighted just those documents that were of interest, highlighted them, exported the selected references into an XML file, and then I could use that. Now I'm not going to resave that. Okay, now let me go to my project. Now, are you able to see my NVivo screen? No?
Not yet. Just getting.
I'll stop sharing and reshare. Okay, where to go? There it is. Okay, can you see my NVivo screen?
Yeah.
This is my project. It looks a bit boring at the moment. That's because I haven't got things opened. These are the NVivo references that I have brought into NVivo. So my EndNote references that I brought in. And you can see these ones have got PDFs associated with them. But if I look down here to my externals, these were also my EndNote file entries, but these ones don't have PDFs. So they're things like books for which there is no PDF available. So they're stored differently within in the data section. So my references from Endnote constitute my data for my literature review. Now, we call it a literature review, but really it's just an analysis of data the same way that we might analyze any other sort of data. So it's brought in files for internals and externals. That's important, those with PDFs and those without. Now, we also have this section called codes. Codes are where we generate definitions of the concepts we're looking for, and then we can go through the different parts of our files, through our EndNote references, and we say this bit of text here is something that relates to a concept I'm interested in, and then we highlight it and it gets saved. Now, I've got a series of codes set up here. I've got some that talk about the dates. That was important. I've got some that's set up about definitions, what constitutes first wave, what do we know about the mortality, where are references to Great War, and different responses. So you can see I've just started coding here. Here on waves, I've done it twice. There are 2 files that have been coded that talk to this thing called waves. We don't need to worry about cases at this point. I'm not using notes, but I've also set up a thing called sets, so that as I sort through, I've got my things of interest, but I want to sort through them in greater detail. So if I start off with 50, I discover as I read through them in greater detail, well, actually these 10 aren't relevant anymore. So I'm just going to drop them down in the not relevant file, and I'll keep ones that are relevant here so they're easy to track. Everything is stored up in data, but I find that it really helps me to focus on the core material by setting them apart in a set, and just setting up titles and just creating buckets to drop useful things into. Another thing that I've done is, just for fun, a nice little visualization. I'm just going to move this around my screen. Just created this nice little visualization of keywords that appear in my data. Look, I think the visualizations are just a bit of fun. That could be great for a PowerPoint slide when I'm talking about my analysis. It's there, it's part of the functionality. We're not going to look at that in great detail, but for some people that will be useful and interesting. At the very least, it makes your academic presentations look clever. So,
Robert, that's just frequencies, is it?
This one is frequencies, yes. So it's those things with a minimum word length of 3. So at and of was cut out. I could move that to say 5 letters, and then the is also cut out. And it's only looking at the 1,000 most frequent words. And that's based on all of the files in internals. So I've got 38 items here, and it's pulled that out. And as I said, look, I'm not seeing an awful lot of use in that. Some may. For me, its utility is in illustration and hey, get it printed on a t-shirt to say I finished my thesis on this topic. So it's nice. There are some people who talk about some of the other visualizations as ways of seeing that you've explored references nicely. But there are other ways to visualize your data, how similar they're related in their word usage. So it's that tree map and cluster maps. So they're just different ways to show the sorts of data that we're working with. Not the main part of what we're going to do today. Now, in the end, what we can come up with is, now I'm going to go back to PowerPoint, so I'm going to stop sharing and reshare. Okay, so we know who we are. Okay, the disclaimer I should have made up front is I'm a practitioner as opposed to an expert. I've been using NVivo for quite a while. My PhD research is a sociological study oh, look, I was struggling with over 1,500 documents as a part of my document study. I was using an Excel spreadsheet. I could be sure in one of the groups, there are 1,035 documents. I could be confident with my Excel spreadsheet that I had between 1,034 and 1,036, but I could never be confident I had 1,035. And then I discovered NVivo, spent, I think it was the December-January break, working through NVivo. Once I had it sorted, I think it was the Easter weekend, I just spent transferring my 1,035 documents in, and then everything was just wonderful. So I've used it in a range of projects. I love this stuff. I keep telling people what NVivo can do is just magic. Okay. If you're looking at systematic literature reviews, here's just an example from my thesis. I was looking at attitudes within Australia that were expressed to reproductive human cloning. I had about 7,000 documents to start with, looking at my different databases. So here was the pooled totals. I separated them out this way just because of the way that the literature downloads from the different databases and the library function. But again, this is the area that the librarians can help you with. Then, as I spoke about, screened by title. If they were of interest, I then read their abstract. If that was interesting, then I read the article. And then I really wanted to push down, so is it about Australians or not? And I got 1 out of 7,000. I believe Phil has a similar experience. Yeah, I can see Eugenia's mouth dropping. But it means I was thorough. So no one can challenge me on this. I know what's out there. However, there were other reports and things that were relevant that I was also able to introduce. So I ended up with just 17 in my literature review of studies that had preceded mine. So that's the sort of thing that a systematic literature review might look like. Now, some will do a systematic literature review based on studies that have gone previously, looking at evidence-based studies. For others, it will be looking at theories that were applied or methods and how they were used. So there will be lots of different applications, but I think that you will find that NVivo will provide the way that you need to deal with it. So what we need to do is go to our sources, screen our Endnote library, and then export an XML file. Once the XML file is exported, and it needs to be saved next to where you've got your Endnote file so that all the PDFs and everything are all close by and uncomplicated, you then import it into NVivo. From NVivo, now I recommend don't import the whole Endnote, just choose the things that are of interest. I accidentally pressed the button on trying to upload, I think it was 5,000 references. Oh, it took a couple of hours. It's bringing them in with PDFs and then sorting them. So today I'm going to suggest you just import a maximum of about 10 or 15. That will go very quickly. Then we'll talk about screening, looking at the internal files and the external files. Then I've got a couple of suggestions that will be useful for working through the data and sorting it, and also making notes for other references that you might want to look for, or for things that suddenly jump out at you and you need to keep a record of. And then we will look at, oops, sorry, I've clicked it. And then we'll look at the analysis, working with editable text in the simple format, editable text when there is more complex content. There are a couple of strategies I think that we can employ to get around the complex content. And then looking at the non-editable text, or where there's no text, as in external files. So we'll have a look at that. And then an extra refinement that we can add, which is classifying our literature, so that we might want to say, yeah, my literature. These particular references deal with different cohorts. And so I want to be able to sort out where there are secondary students versus primary students versus adults. So we'll look at that as a simple refinement that can help us. And then I'll show you where to find the coding summary and visualizations we've mentioned. Any questions at this point? Okay.
Just quite a few concepts to hold in the head at the moment, that's all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, your heads are going to spin a bit. But the idea is we'll work it through to get you started and ask as many questions as you need to. And after this, if you still have questions remaining, I'm open to you asking them. So Katie is part of SCPA, which I know is, or SCPA, which is extremely helpful. I always found SCPA to be helpful when I was a postgrad student. Pass on your inquiries through Katie. I'm happy to help. Okay.
Robert?
Yes.
I just heard that there. We have on our, I'll try and put the link in the chat. We have the ability for you guys to book a consultation to work a bit closer for your research for some more help on NVivo. So I'll stick the link in the chat for you guys for future reference.
Thank you. Okay, does everybody have NVivo active on their machine now? Meaning Eugenia, yes? Excellent. Does everybody have an Endnote file? Now, can I ask, how big are your Endnote files? Are there more than 100 references? No, so some yes, some no. Okay. I'd like you to go to your Endnote file and go to select, say, 10 or 15 references. So just highlight them. Some that will have PDFs attached and some that don't, just so that we can play with a variety of different references. If you're not sure, just highlight, say, the first 10 to 20. Just don't do more than about that because it'll take forever. Then export, give it a name, and then make sure that you specify that it will be XML. And then check the button that says export selected references. Okay, give me a thumbs up or a signal when you've achieved your export. This is the tedious bit, the fun stuff still to come. Okay, you can turn your mics on. We're only a small group, so there shouldn't be a problem.
No worries, I'm just trying to find a file to put it in. Would it matter if it was on a cloud drive, Robert? Or should it be?
No,
yeah, cool.
No, you'll still be able to source it. No, yeah. What we do later is we just browse to find where we've got it. So make sure you remember where you save it to. But save it next to your EndNote file. So save them in the same place. It just makes everything simpler for transferring all the documents.
Do you have to choose an output style?
Now, are you talking Chicago or APA or something?
Yeah, well, it's come up as Chicago, which is what I've been using.
That's good. Go with that. That's actually how it writes in, that's how it presents itself when you use EndNote in, say, your Word document. It really won't make much difference in this. Devin Lawrence looked deep in thought.
Yep.
So I'm still just selecting some files to just group together.
Yep.
So, and then I'll be able to export them. So I'm almost there.
Good. You're going okay, Lawrence?
Yeah, I'm almost there. I'm just focusing.
So just to check I'm on the right track, I've created a group that I was going to export. Does that sound okay? And then how do I export that particular group?
Okay, go through and highlight the parts of the group.
Yep, beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, you mean what you've done. Yep.
And you too.
Now hit File and Export. And make sure you select Export Selected References.
Oh,
Is that a good R or a bad R, Lawrence?
yeah, I'm not sure if I did that, what you just said. Let me just try that again. Export.
How are you going, Eugenia?
Great. I'm just waiting now. Should I start a new project in NVivo or wait?
Oh, no, go ahead. Open up a new one. Call it, give it a name that's useful and relevant. And then in the description, you might want to put a sentence or two so that if something happens, you get abducted by aliens, your supervisors can open your file and see where you were up to.
Okay.
Sorry, Robert. So I've clicked on Export File. Where do I choose the selected references?
It should be right at the bottom. There'll be a little square. Now, have you
Right.
selected XML? Export as XML.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I found my XML. So
Good.
what do I do next? I go to NVivo.
Okay. Yeah, hold on. Just
hold on,
remember where your XML file is.
Mm-hmm.
Now go to NVivo, open a new project, give it a title, maybe a sentence description again, so that your supervisors can see where you're up to if you're abducted by aliens suddenly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, Phil, where are you at with your XML download?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Just starting a blank project.
Oh, good. So, Deb, are you at NVivo yet?
So I've got NVivo open.
Brilliant. We're all up to that.
Well, I'm not sure if I am. I've just opened it and it's got user profile.
So just put in your initials.
Great.
Okay, now the reason it does that is that if your project, if you say go to a supervision section and your supervisor say, okay, I want to do some stuff in here, then you open the project and you show the project that there's a different user. So your supervisor will put in his or her initials and NVivo can then show who made the changes. So mostly it's not relevant, but there is that functionality if ever it's needed.
So the name then is my name,
Yep.
not the name of the project.
Can you just show your screen? I think you're at project.
I can. Hang on. Where do I do that one? Here we go. Share screen.
Okay, no, that's your name. That's correct.
Right. And I just say okay at this point.
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Has everybody got a new project open now? One that you've made.
It's just prompting me to sign in. Maybe that's linking to an online.
Hey, Robert, it's showing me a file, the file type of NVP. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. But I'm just at the home page now. It's kind of blank.
Oh, you're on the first page of your NVivo project.
Yeah.
Right, good. That's where you need to be. Good.
Oh, okay. All right.
But the MVP is NVivo project. Just make it easy to remember. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again. Let's close that. That's the boring stuff. Okay. Are you at this page?
Yes.
Okay. Can I say, Phil, are you at this page with your project?
Yes, and it's got a quick start step on the
Yep,
right
that's
hand
fine.
side. I don't know if I need
Eugenia?
anything there.
No, I can't get there.
Ah, okay. Deb, are you at this page?
No, I'm not either. Sorry.
Okay. Eugenia, do you want to show your screen? Let's see if we can
Hold on,
catch-
I think I might be. It was asking for a connection. Oh no, it's got an issue. Hold on, I'll try again.
Okay. Deb, would it be helpful to show your screen?
Yeah, sure. It's got, you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, try again.
Try again. So, this is what I've got.
Oh, brilliant. Blank project.
Is that what I want?
Yep, that's what you want.
So do I click on the blank project?
Yes, this time you do. Next time, it'll be listed on the purple column on the left.
Awesome. And
Try
is
it.
this where I give it my initials, or is this
No.
where I, no,
This is for the project. This is where you call it My Fabulous Literature Review.
great.
And then for description, that's where you write whatever might be helpful as a prompt to you, or if your supervisors need to look at it at some point when you're not around.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now, do you mind going back to that?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
put the screen back up. I'll just show you another thing. It's another functionality that I've never found useful, but see there on the central square, it's got title, description, and file name. Then at the bottom, there's this little square to check. Write user actions to project event log. If it's useful for you, and I don't know when, then you check on that box and everything you do, every little action will be logged. Now, there may be some types of research where you really want to keep a detailed record of every little action. But I recommend not checking it because that is a file that will fill up very, very quickly and get very, very big. So, and certainly at this stage, I recommend you don't use that. Okay, so Deb, you can just click OK and you're done.
Great. Do I browse to find?
You can browse if you want it to save somewhere else.
Oh,
So if you want
okay.
it to save on your
All right.
external drive or your cloud drive or in
Thank
the
you.
W
Awesome.
drive.
Thank
So
you.
that's all that is. Now, Eugenia, how are you going?
No, it won't start. I
Okay.
can't get it to start.
Would you like to show your screen?
Hold on, and I'll just open it up again.
Yep.
Because I'm not on, I'm just on a, oh no, I'm on a university one, but it isn't licensed yet because I only just did it this morning. So it says,
If you've downloaded it.
Yeah, it says, welcome to the trial.
Okay, yeah, you're using the trial
So I've
version.
launched it. Still waiting for it to launch. Yep, so it's launched and it says recent projects.
Blank, open blank.
Yeah, new project, it says.
Yep.
And then it asks for a project title.
And description, good. So complete
Yeah,
that.
but also a file name. It asks for a file name, and when I go into that,
Okay, can you show your screen, please?
I'm trying to. I've lost the whole screen. It's all right. Just keep going and I'll work out what I'm doing.
Okay. We still got Phil?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Just
that's
that I was,
fine.
you know, I didn't want to see me picking my teeth.
Oops, sorry, I didn't catch that.
I said you didn't want to see me picking my teeth.
Okay.
So it's just like you didn't need to see that. So that now we're all good again.
Okay. So I thought I was showing my screen. No, I just, okay. So this is my screen. So you should have one that looks very similar to this. So what I'm going to do now is import. So you can see import at the top of the screen. Does everybody have this command bar open?
Yep.
Okay. So import. And you can see over here, we've got different bibliographic software listed. So as I said, there's quite a lot of functionality here, but Endnote is the one we're going to work with. Now, I can just click on that, or alternatively, I go down here into this square and right click. And I will import, sorry, wrong one. Right click from Endnote. So 2 ways. Now, I should have asked early on, who doesn't have a PC that they're working on? Is anybody working on a Mac?
No.
I'm on a PC.
Okay, because if you're on a Mac, I would ridicule and humiliate you and throw sticks at you. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. For what we're doing, a Mac would be okay, but Macs don't support the full functionality of NVivo. So depending on how complicated your project gets, there are things that you would struggle to do on a Mac. We'll get through it at this point and it will be okay. But if you were to have, say, 2 or 3 people using the project and doing, checking the coding, the correlation of the different coding systems, then you couldn't do that easily on a Mac. Plus you can't right click. Right click is the wonderful thing that we do here. So can you please go, make sure it says files here. If it doesn't, then just click here, quick access. Make sure it says files, not memos, not nodes, but files. Right click, import from Endnote. Now, then find your file, your XML file, and then you should get something like this panel open up.
Yep.
Now, you have an option here, import from and list it by name, which could be by title or by author and year. My suggestion is that you do it by title. Unless there's a specific reason that your lit review focus is on what particular authors have done, I suggest make sure it says title. It should say a single classification reference.
Yep.
And then everything else automatically, just go with default values and click import. It should then open a little bar down on the left hand of the screen, and it'll work through and show you its progress. So is that happening for everybody?
Good
Yes. Yep.
Yep, good here.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, so over here on the left, if your data and these things have been minimized, open data and open internals.
Now I'm not getting internals.
Yeah, I'm not
on
getting
this.
that either. Yeah.
I've got externals,
Okay,
Yeah.
and under files I can see all the PDF files.
so you've got it here under files, but not under internals.
Yeah, there's no submenu for internals on mine, but the files are all there. And then there is externals underneath, and it's got the couple of non-linked, and non-PDF ones there. So
can you just share your screen, please, so I can see your internals?
that was a medical degree. did as well. If you could just stop sharing
Oh,
for a
sorry, I
bit.
keep forgetting that step. Sorry.
That's all right. Where do I go? What does it look like? That one there. Okay, can you see that okay?
Okay, go to, okay, under files, good, and externals. Okay, excellent. Click on externals, brilliant. Now, does everybody have the same sort of thing there?
Yeah, mine's the same.
Okay, what I would, yeah, no, we'll work with that, that's good. So mine's just been realigned a little.
Okay.
So, everyone's got their files. I'll just reshare my screen.
So does it matter if I don't have internals? Just like
No.
Phil?
Can you show me your screen, please, Lawrence?
Okay. I have you unshared yours? Or?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I'm going to share mine, which is... See, mine is kind of bland looking.
Oh.
It's not as pretty as yours with all the icons and all that.
Okay, you've got the trial version.
Oh, do I? Okay.
Yes. So you'll have to upgrade that later.
Okay.
So what we go through today will still be useful and helpful. And if you save this, you should still be able to transfer it into the upgraded program. No, that's got PDFs there. It's just that they're not pretty. Can you see under files, under the word files?
Yeah. Oh, these ones, these
Yes.
icons. Ah, okay.
It's just they're not pretty.
Right.
Now, can you click on externals, please? Hit the close button
Hit the close.
at the bottom of the screen.
Just hang on. I just need to move this. Oh. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you didn't import any externals. That's okay. Okay, we will get around that. Now, Eugenia and Deb, do you have internals and externals?
No, I don't have any because I've downloaded it this morning and I don't think it's version 12. I think it's a higher version. So it didn't.
Eugenia, that's what I did the first time round. I downloaded the wrong version and I had to take it off my machine and start again.
Yeah, that's what I think. So just keep going, Robert, because it's being recorded, so I'll be able to follow it once I get the right version.
Okay. So Deb, you've got internals and externals.
Yeah, I have. Yep, that's all working
Bill's
for
got
me.
both. Lawrence only has internals, but that's good. That'll be illustrative for us. So what will happen? I'll just put my screen back up. So where Phil has got no externals, we can create an external. So say there's this book we've suddenly found, and this is really good. We should include it in our EndNote, but we're not sure. So we're going to create this new thing called, I'm just going to call it new book. And its attribute, we're going to classify it as a reference. So it's a book. It was authored by Smith. So I'll just type Smith in, that'll be added. And it was published 2006. So I can still put all the data in as if it was a reference we brought in from EndNote. File link, file. Okay, I don't have a link for it. We'll just say it's there. So you can still create something that will, you can still link to your external file for your books. So at all points, you can just go into a screen, right click and create a new thing, whether it's a new file, new external, new codes, whatever. Now, one thing we haven't looked at yet is this file classification thing. If you click on that, you will find that all our files will appear as references. Now, if you were doing a document study, you might have some files that are grouped as government reports, or there might be a file classification for evidence-based studies. But because we're doing literature review, it's useful just to have them all under reference. They've all come in through our Endnote. They're all being considered references. Now, open that and you'll see here are all the different sections of the Endnote file. So we've got reference type, we've got author, year, title, etc., etc., etc. So we have all those different functions from Endnote that have been brought over. Plus, I've gone and added some extra because it's useful for me to be able to say, I also want to classify my references in addition to what Endnote has specified. I want to know what the country of origin was. I want to know, in my case, which Australian state is being referenced. I also want to know which cohort, city, on topic. So I might also want to know something about what was the age group that was referenced in my group. So there may be some other way of classifying your literature that's relevant to your work. So I'm going to add a classification for age group. So I'm just going to say age group for a new classification and click OK. So it's added it in. Where did it add it in? Oh, where did it put it? Oh, sorry, it added it as a, didn't mean to add it as a classification actually. What I wanted, delete. So I'm just going to delete that one. What I meant to do, I made a mistake there, was to add a new attribute. So my references have different attributes, and this is the age group. So I want to be able to say, this is a great reference and it involves children or it involves the elderly. So I want different values. So I want under 12-year-olds. And okay. And then I want to, where is it? Attribute properties, and I can add more things to it. Adults, elderly, over 60. So you've got to be careful what categories you choose. But now I can go through my references and classify them according to age group and to note the different attribute values, whether the reference is classified according to whether it deals with children or those who are over 60.
Can I just check, where did you click to add the attributes?
Yep.
A new attribute?
Okay, so you've got file classification.
Yep.
Right click on reference.
Yep.
Now we can go to new attribute.
Ah, lovely. That's great. Yep, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
So right click on, now the other trick is always click on the icon. Sometimes NVivo can be a little bit finicky if you click on the text. So always click on the icon and you'll get a much better result. So click on reference, create a new attribute, and you can call it whatever. So I'll just create one called colors. Now I'm just going to hit OK. And when I scroll down, I'll find, oh, here's the new one called colors. Now I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to go to its properties. There it is. There's my colors, my values. Well, there's nothing there yet. So I'm going to add red. And I'm going to add green. So now I can go through and say, I want to find all the references about Spanish flu in Australia that were green? Not overly
Were there
useful.
many?
But what was that?
Were there many?
Well, there's none. The colours is irrelevant. It's just an illustration.
But I thought
So what do you,
colour would help.
no, not at that point. But there is a way to mark things. You'll see here the internals. I've got these green spots over on the right-hand side. That's just something I've done. I've right-clicked, hit color, and put down a color to mark that, well, green means I finished these ones, purple means I've started. So that's just an extra tool. Okay, classifications. Do you have a question about classifications? And we'll have a 5-minute break. Then we get into the really, really good stuff. Okay, Phil looks like he has a question, just not sure.
Phil's just thinking whether he should have one or not, but maybe once we practice.
Okay. It will
That
also...
was clear. That was really good.
Okay, it depends on what you are studying and how you want to divide it up.
Yeah.
It's an extra way of being able to sort through things that might be important. The main thrust of what we do is with the coding. And I'm going to recommend we have a 5-minute break and come back and get into it. And by the end, I think you'll feel that you're on the road to being able to sort through your literature. Any questions?
No.
It's all good, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, let's say we have a 5-minute break. Katie, do you want to pause the recording? Project. So I've gone through and I've coded this now with this thing called useful content. So I've opened my codes and I've created this note. Here it is, useful content. I've used it here on one file, whereas the thing above it, Spanish flu mentioned, was used in 5 files. And there were 2 different chunks of text.
Robert, can I pause you for a minute?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if everyone else can hear it, but you sound like a robot.
Oh,
Yeah.
that happens after an hour. Okay, give me a minute. I'll go out and come back. Just 1 minute.
No problem. I just wasn't sure if it was just me. How's everyone going? Are you all keeping up?
I can hear it too.
Yeah. I think I'm about 20 seconds behind. I've made a useful codes code, but I just wanted to step back into that again.
No problem. Robert, you're on mute.
I just did my best Dalek impression. I'm sorry, after about an hour, that seems to happen on my computer. I don't understand why, so my apologies for that.
Can I ask a quick question just while we're at this point?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a code and a node?
The code is the concept that you're using, and it's going to, we use nodes to specify where we've coded. So the nodes will be the places where you've coded.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, it's part of the NVivo language. I'm not sure what you caught and what you didn't catch previously, but this useful content coding that I've created has been used in one file, and there were 2 chunks of text that are identified as useful content.
So Robert, I didn't see how you did that. Like I did see how you made the node. Like, so I've sort of copied that and got a node there called useful codes.
Yep.
Just to do that. But as to how you just, how you just did that, I missed a bit in
Okay,
there.
then let's do it again. I'm going back to the same internal, the same file. I'm going, no, I'll leave it there so I don't have to change screens again. And as it is, I'm just making this stuff up. This isn't real coding.
So find a bit of practice text in the document.
Oh, look, this is important. This is about Shepherd of the Council. So I'm going to create a code called Shepherd. Oh. Okay. So code, new node. and shepherd. Okay, done. What I can also do, see at the top of the screen, I've got coding stripes.
Yep.
I choose coding stripes for my active open document. And it shows me here where I've coded some text for shepherd. If I click on that, it'll highlight it. If I go up here, so, oh, look, here's where I've done some other coding. So that can be useful. Coding stripes are your very good friend.
All coding, oh, you just toggle through to see. Yeah, okay.
So coding stripes are just useful functionality. So you can see here, I've coded text as useful content. Now, oh, I discovered this paragraph, this sentence here is actually not useful. I shouldn't have done that. So I highlight it, right click, and now I'm going to uncode it. But I'm going to use a different function, uncode from recent. So it keeps a record of what I coded recently. That's the shepherd code. Well, that's not relevant because this is useful content. So I'm going to uncode that part.
So Robert, what does recent mean? Can you set parameters for recent or is it a default?
It'll just hold about 8 of the most recently done.
Yeah, right.
Alternatively, just click on the stripe and uncode that stripe. So the useful content bit's gone there now.
That's cool.
So if I go back to my node and to useful content, I've still got these 2 chunks there, but they're different chunks. And also I now have a shepherd. Now shepherd is useful, but what I'm going to do is drag shepherd down to useful content and I create a hierarchy. So you can create hierarchies of coding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because I'm saying these things are relevant, then it would be useful to know what the real counts are. So I right click on this. Now this is a parent node to these child nodes. But the counts don't quite tell me the true picture because there's different stuff happening in the child node. So I'm going to right click on useful, go down to aggregate from children. And now you'll see the numbers have changed. Now it tells me what was happening here and adds it up to this node as well. So that can be really useful when you've created a hierarchy of nodes. Now,
Sorry, could you just do that again? I was taking a note and missed how you aggregate.
Okay, aggregate is just drag and drop. First of all, we create our hierarchy. And then we right click on the parent node. And then down at the bottom of our menu, we check the box. In that case, I've just unchecked it. So aggregate coding from children. So now I've got the true count of how many times useful content is being coded. Now it tells me that useful content with these different subcategories is active in 3 different files and 6 different references. Gee, wouldn't it be good to know exactly what they look like? So let's double click on useful content. Now you'll see on my screen that everything that I have coded under useful content is shown here on this screen. So remember that first document I opened. It's a huge thing with lots of stuff that's not necessarily relevant to me. So I focused in by saying, here is useful content. But now I want to really get to the real stuff. So here we go. Here's something that's useful about bubonic plague. So I'm going to create a new code. And I'm going to call it bubonic plague. So now I'm going through the big chunk of whole document. I've isolated useful content. Now I'm getting to the heart of the concepts that are relevant to my studies. So I'm coding on top of the coding so as to find the bits that are most useful in the huge documents that I might be working with. So if you're going through, say, an ebook that you're able to download a whole chapter from, but there's only a paragraph that's useful, then highlight that paragraph and then subcode it according to the various concepts that you need. And then you can move the nodes around to create your hierarchies and find where things are. Now, something that we haven't done yet. So here we go. I've got my bubonic plague node here. I want to go down to node properties. Now on everything, on each of the different parts that we create in NVivo, there will be a properties command. So if you need to change something, go down to the properties here, node properties. I'm going to click on there. And it tells me I can create this thing called bubonic plague. Oh, gee, why was I coding for that? So I'm going to write my my definition here. This code is to note when reference to the bubonic plague is made in relation to Spanish flu, influenza. So you create a definition. So every time I open that up now, go back down to node properties, I will have my description there or my definition. So I can develop more or less my code book as I go. So each time you create a code, make a definition, write it somewhere, and then you'll be able to pull it out at the end. Yes, Phil.
Robert, thanks for that. That's really helpful. I'm wondering, can you use a node as a child in multiple parents? Let's just say you had some sort of...
No.
So it's a linear thing. Shepherd stays where it is.
Yeah,
okay.
It will be.
So you got to find its best fit. You can't sort of have this Venn diagram approach to it.
No, that will just confuse NVivo. See, say I'm looking at documents for my research, and I've got Australian documents and I've got US documents, and within that I want to look at mortality. So I can have a US node and a child node called mortality. And then I go to my Australian documents, and if I create a sub node there called mortality, then fine, there are some circumstances under which it will be sorted quite clearly within NVivo, but it's going to confuse the heck out of me. Which particular mortality subcoding am I looking at? So in that case, I would say mortality US and mortality Oz. So it's the same concept, but with a differentiation put next to it, just to keep it sorted and very, very clear.
Okay. Yep,
and
thanks.
Then if it becomes relevant, I can just bring the two mortality codes together and work on them that way. But they will still be separated and still be obvious, so I can sort them very clearly in my mind.
Cool.
Okay, so that's dealing with something where there's a huge amount of content, which means that when there's something smaller, it's even easier to deal with. if we've got, okay, here we go. This whole thing is of use. So this document here, I will just go through and create codes. So I'm going to create a code here for West Australia. Hit OK. Done. I now have a new code. I'll go back to nodes. Here we go, West Australia. Now, we've created all these codes. They appear here under nodes. But I've also created folders of different nodes as a way of sorting through the different concepts and grouping them so as to help me. So when I come to write my literature review, all the things that involve, okay, this is what's of interest to me, you need to decide for yourself. All the bits of text that relate to dates of Spanish flu will be here in these nodes. And then I can go here for the things that relate to the various definitions I want to work with. I've got a group of nodes that I've placed together in this folder. So I went to nodes, created a new folder. I'll just call this one concepts. Now I've got a new folder and I can bring useful content, just drag and drop, and there it is. And it dragged all of the sub nodes, all the child nodes, and keeps a track of all the references. So infinite flexibility within NVivo.
If you changed your mind and went, oh, I shouldn't have put that in that, it would be better in definitions.
Okay.
How do you undo that?
Okay, so Shepherd, I'm going to drag and drop it. It's no longer here. Where do I put it? Definitions. There it is now.
Great, thank you.
Wonderfully flexible. Oh, look at this. I know what I'm doing because I've read so much literature. I'm just going to create a code out of the top of my head. So I don't have to go to the text and say, well, I'll create a code here. I can just right click, or I can use the create button and create a new node. So it could be that before you start, you already know that there are some concepts that are going to be important for you. So you can just go and create a whole stack of nodes a priori. Samoa is another one, Samoa. So I've just created them in anticipation. And I'll create a new folder, which will be for countries. And I will just go and drop these things there. I'm going to use my control button to highlight and drop them. So that's just moving around your concepts and grouping them and putting them in hierarchies. What if you've got an external with no PDF? So here we go, disease, health and healing. Dang, there's no text. What I can do here is click to edit, and I can make notes from my reading of the book. Or I can simply say that it speaks to the concept of bubonic plague and Russian flu. And they might be useful things. So I've made a note. So I'll just close that up. So just close all these things. So here I've gone and said I'll create a memo. Create some notes here. And now I can code on the notes that I've made.
Okay.
I'm going to code this for Russian flu. Done.
So you could sort of just dump and drop an annotated bibliography.
Bingo. Yes. And there's bubonic plague, just code to recent.
Rob,
Done.
just one question.
Yeah.
Please, with the nodes and the folders. Do your original nodes, I can't, because the screen's just a little bit small, Do they now live in the in the folder you've dropped it in, or are they still in the node?
No, they're in the folders. I
So they've
recommend
moved.
that every time you create something, either a new file or a new node, or if you work with cases and things, create folders and drop them into. When they're made, they will by default go into this uppermost category. So
Sure.
create folders and transfer them so that you know exactly where they are. So structure, structure, structure.
Yep.
And in
Thank
the
you.
end, you will find great benefits.
That's great. Thanks.
Have you each created a node and done some coding? Is there anybody who hasn't tried that yet? Okay, Lawrence?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to work on mine because it doesn't, it's a trial version. Maybe it doesn't
No,
have
you'll
it.
still be able to, but it'll be less flexible. Do you want to show your flash your screen up?
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing. If you flash your screen up, we should be able to get an example happening for you as well. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
All right. So,
Unshare that and then share the NVivo screen. Unshare, then reshare NVivo.
oh, okay. Let me see. Just share. Ah, sorry. That was the wrong one. Okay. That'll be much better.
Okay, we've got codes. Okay, see at the top it says create.
Mm-hmm.
Now click on code. There you go. So you can create one. So what would be an important concept here? Older people or nursing homes?
Yeah, it's just older people. Yeah.
Okay, so call that one older people.
Yep.
And then if we were being really detailed and had the time, you'd write in your full code description.
Yep.
Yeah, you can choose to aggregate from children at that point, but we know how to do that later. And hit OK. Now, yep, there you go. Now, you haven't yet coded something. So go over to your, go to your text and highlight some text. We'll just pretend.
Yeah, which I've done over here. Yeah.
Okay, it's not active at the moment. So just
Oh, okay.
try highlighting again.
I'll just do it again. Right.
Now right click on that text.
Yep.
Code selection. Now go over and choose older people. Bingo, you got it. Did that work? Yes, it did. Now see, it says files 1, references 1. So older people has now been used to code one file and in one chunk of text.
Okay. Except they don't call it the note.
Yeah, the language changes here.
Yeah, the language. Yeah. Once they, I guess my IT guys fix this, then it's going to be much better.
Yeah, but it will still work more or less conceptually. It will still work the same way.
Okay.
Okay, can you
Right.
unshare, please?
Thank you.
Seems mean telling people not to share. Okay. Now, what else do we need to do? Memos. If you click on Memos, you will find that notes that were made in Endnote will be stored here. So I have an internal file called the Global Perspective. And in my Endnote file, there was an abstract recorded, keywords, and some notes. So I've got these things here that I can also code and work with. They are bits of text that were brought in from Endnote. So this is another way of dealing with folders, references that don't have text, so no PDF. As Phil said, if you've got notes made in Endnote, you will find them here in Memos. Just find the right memo and go through and code that. Now, what I also suggest is that you go and create a memo called Readme. Now, tell me, how will you create a memo called Readme? There are two ways.
Go to the top, click on
Yep.
Memos, go to the top and click Create.
Yes.
Choose Memo.
Very good.
There it is. Just type the name in.
And the other way is go to the bottom of the Memos panel, right click, and then choose New Memo. Now, I suggest that you create Readme just as a way of, just to have a space where when you're going through this, you come across a citation, you think, gee, that's really important. I got to follow up on this. So make a memo or record in your memo. I really need to go and follow up on this later. So I've got my Readme. I will open it. I will click to edit. And then I will go in and type, here is a new reference, bloody, bloody, blah. And then later on, you know, in the afternoon when I'm too brain numb to go and do more coding, I'll go back here and I'll go and hunt out the reference from the library databases. So it's just an extra tip. I would also recommend creating another memo where things of importance get noted. So if there are new concepts or new ideas that come to you or things that you think, I've got to talk this over with my supervisor, create the memo, open it, click to edit, and record your thoughts there. NVivo projects are places where all the data can be stored together. So in this case, if we think of the literature review as our project, then we record the literature in our project, the analysis of our project, and also these other things that arise from our reading and our analysis. I'm also suggesting that you create another memo called Codebook. And I suggest that you record in here what your codes will look like. I'm a bit anal about this, but I really think that we should be recording, that we should have some methodology around code development. So if you create a code book structure, and then when you create your nodes in the description, then you complete, you know, I use a seven-part definition. Yours might be different, but if you record the structure here in your code book memo, and then in your various nodes in the description, record what the description of that node is. Then you've got all your stuff together in the one project that you can just extract when you need to. Any questions thus far? Okay. What else do we need to be talking about? Okay. File classifications. Let's go to that. File classifications start off with the headings from our Endnote file, plus the other things that we have added in, which is nice, but how's it going to help me? This can be useful because I want to explore the documents. Now, in this case, they're all classified as references, so that's fine. But I want to find all the references that deal with Australia that were maybe coded for bubonic plague or something. So I can go through and say, I want to explore, I'm going to go for my files, I'm going to explore, first one, let's do word frequency. So we've got some various tools here by which we can explore selected items. In this case, I just want to do internals. I could just select individuals, but I want to do internals just to see what's going to come up. So I can do simple word frequency. And if I sort them according to length or their count, then I get a whole range of outputs there and our lovely word charts. Go back to Explore. Just close all those panels down. It's being slow. Okay. I'm going to Explore. This time I want to look at coding. I want to look in, I've only coded internals, so I'll only look at them. I want to look in my internals, in the selected items, and I want to look for ones that are coded at just go to my nodes. I want to look at those particular nodes. So I want to go through a particular set of documents that are coded to a particular set of codes. And here they all are. And it tells me exactly which bits of text, so I can go through and analyze them, play with them, or even code them in greater degree and specificity. So I might want to create some subcodes here. I can get the summaries. So these are the documents. There were 4 documents. This is the number of references that came up. Here's a listing of them, or I can just see them according to PDF and see the pages and where the text is that was coded. So that's exploring, looking at coding, selecting which documents I want to look at, and just checking the right boxes. I'm looking at those that are coded at or not coded at, and selecting the codes that were relevant. And for me, it was definitions and run query. Oh, obviously I chose the wrong documents. Oh, sorry. Did I get it right that time? Now I might consider this was a really useful result that I just don't want to have to keep repeating. I want to come back to it a number of times. So I'm just going to add it to my project. So this button up here, add it to project or save results. I'm going to add it to the project, save it as a query. I'm going to call it coding internals, except I can't spell. And when I want to find it again, then I'll just come down here. See on the left-hand side to search, go into my queries, and I've saved it there so I can reopen it. I can open it again at any time without having to rerun the search. Same I did with the word cloud. When I had that, I saved it to my project as well. So I can just pull it up at any time and see it over and over again. So saving things to queries is a way to not have to repeat the searches that you've done. Now, the final thing I want to run through is sets. Sets are so useful. I've created 2 sets here. Again, sets, open sets, right click, create new sets, or use the create options up here in the, across the top. I've created relevant, not relevant, because I've imported, say, 20 different documents. As I read through them, I discovered that what I thought was of interest is actually not relevant to my literature review. So here is, I'm going to open my files, internals. Look, this one here, a day like any other. I've read it through. This thing is actually not relevant to me. So I am going to, drag, let's start again. Drag it down to not relevant. So here I have a list, a growing list of the things that aren't relevant. Okay, that's not useful. But the relevant side, I'm now going to generate a list of the 15 or whatever number articles that I will use in my literature review. So in my internals and in my externals, I'm finding the things that really are of value and bringing them together. So here we go. There's another one. Oh yeah, that one's interesting. That one's relevant. So now down here in my relevant set, my internals and externals are all brought together so I can see them side by side. So these are the ones that I will now work with rather than dealing up here. As I discover their usefulness, I will transfer them down here so I keep track of them, but I've grouped them together just so I can see exactly where the damn things are when I need them. Finally, my brain's shutting down. Where do we go? Outputs, outputs, outputs. Finally, I want to create a report where I show my nodes. So I'm going to create a report. I want to filter my results. I want just to pick up all these things. So all the data from my nodes will come together from all my references. It's thinking. I'm just going to undock that. I'll close the screen and reshare. Have you got the, oh yes, it's highlighted. So here I have a report of all the bits of coding that I've done, which may be useful if at times you just want to see it or print it out. So here's where I've coded for bubonic plague. It was in this file. And okay, there was only 2 words coded. Here the file was used and this is the text that was coded. So it will get all the text together so you can see it all in one place if that's useful to you. I've only done that once or twice. Mostly I don't need to do that, but you have options to get that sort of report. Now, according to my watch, we are nearly out of time. So what questions do you have? I've run through a heck of a lot of stuff. I'll just show you my summary page. Get your sources. I recommend you filter your EndNote down to abstract, export your XML files as you've done and import to NVivo. And as your EndNote file grows, you can go and select the new documents and import them as well and add them. Go through and look at your internal files and your external files. And I've suggested these additional things to create. The go find code. So if there's something that you need to go and check out later, you've highlighted what that is that you want to check out. Perhaps a code for quotes. It may be that there's something just wonderful there. So in addition to coding it for its content, you might just want to make a note that here's a quote that I think I will be able to use in my write-up at some point. So these are just a little bit extra things to the side to help make your writing easier. Create the Readme Memo that you can come back to later. And I recommend the on topic or the relevant set as a way of pulling all the internals and externals together so you can see them visually. Analyze, create initial codes, just go in, right click or use the create node buttons. Where there is simple editable text, fine, go through, highlight, code. Oh, there is one thing. I didn't show you code NVivo. There is a code recent nodes and code NVivo. Code NVivo is when whatever you code becomes the title of the new node. So if you highlight 5 words, those 5 words will be the title of the new node. So that's what code NVivo means. So for simple editable text, excellent. Where it's complex, then go through and code what is relevant and then go and subcode. And all the time create folders and structure. Where you have non-editable text, like a really old document that's been brought in, or there is no text because it's an external file, then you can retype the text, which is not always practical. You can type in the memo, or you can code on a region of a page. Yeah, so they're the ways around that. You can also go and create attributes and attribute values for each of your documents. And then you can go and explore and find documents according to their attributes or attribute values. And then reporting, I think coding summary by code report is the thing you'll find most helpful at this point. And my other tip is establish code definitions as you progress through your analysis. Store the definition of the code in that memo that I suggested earlier for your code book, and then write each definition in the description of each new code that you create, and then just play with visualizations. At this point, I suspect that'll be just for fun. So, what questions for the remaining time? How bamboozled are you?
Robert, I just had one, please, just to step back over the redoing the query again. I think I missed a step or two in there. I was clicking away and getting no results.
Yeah, okay. That may be because you haven't coded very much as yet.
Sure.
Do you have text coded?
I do.
Then select the file in which you know that you have coding.
Oh, okay. Yep. The actual file. Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to get a null result. Which is very
Okay.
disappointing.
So you search within an actual file, not across all the files.
Well, you can, but it depends on what you're trying to focus in on. Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, sure. Just make sure it's the right one. How's that?
Okay, can you click on, oh, okay, head teacher voices. Open, oh, good, okay. Oh, you've got coding stripes open, wonderful.
It is pretty.
Okay, can you click on nodes, please? Good, okay. So go to explore, click on coding. Okay, go to selected items. So you've got
Where is that?
Oh,
yes, over here.
Yeah, so you've got to select the parts that are going to work for you. So just click on files. Just check the files box in the left hand. So that should cover all of them. And coded at all codes, all cases. Yeah, that should do it. But I'd recommend, yeah, click OK there. Where it's true, coded at, okay, just run query, see what we get. They're missing values. Okay, go to that little ... next to all selected codes or cases. Go ... yep. Click next to useful codes. Why is this not working? Okay, okay, and run query. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
So you've got all the bits of text there. Now you can go and code that to find a degree. So head teacher agreements might be something really important there. So every time you see head teacher, you just go through and and then recode.
Right.
So highlight head teacher, create a new head teacher thing, and then you're coding to to finer and finer detail within your text.
That's great. Thanks. That'll be recorded now. I'll remember that. There's just a few of those selection steps on the way through. Thank you.
And look, it's so detailed that every now and again something goes wrong. I think, okay, let's try that again and see what I did wrong. So
Right. Thanks, Robert. That's good.
gradually you'll learn to do it intuitively. I can click through stuff and think, oh, but how do I explain it? So it'll come to you. Any last questions before I hand back to Katie?
Rob, I was just wondering if you can use it for archive documents.
Oh, heck yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think I've got.
What's your specific question there, Eugenia?
Well, I have things like tickets of leave, certificates of freedom.
Yeah, you can use it for photos. Blake told me earlier he's doing a research project where he's actually analysing video.
Yeah.
So you can use this for anything. So archive stuff, yeah, look, they're all just documents.
Yeah.
They could be written in a foreign language.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
And also I had another question with map. What was map on the left-hand side?
Okay, we didn't go into map. Map is where you create linkings between things. You've got mind maps, project maps, and concept maps that you can create and play with.
Yeah,
so again, it's a way of linking different things together, putting new ideas down and seeing how they connect.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the relationships between people, like crimes. Like if there's 3 or 4 people involved in one crime and they came to Australia, where did they go? So that would be a good, I was thinking that'd be a good way to map them.
Okay, then you will need to look at the relationships function.
Yeah, that's all right.
Where's that? Under codes, you'll see relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll be able to create relationships that link people.
Yeah, oh great, thank you.
Can I just ask, how does that differ from, was it aggregate?
Aggregate is where the number of files and the number of references in child nodes are added up into the parent node's number of files and references.
So when you create that relationship,
yes,
how is that different to relationships under the codes?
Okay, that's not about relationships. That's simply about how nodes relate to each other.
Speak to each other, kind of.
Same language, yeah. How they're connected with each other. Relationships, it might be that you, okay, using what I'm guessing relates to Eugenia, perhaps to yours even, that person A is connected with person B in the same crime, and person B is connected to person C and person D in a second crime as well. So you create a relationship, and you can say that it's a neutral relationship or it's a one-way relationship. So and you define it the way you want, but there's directionality that's also possible there. So it's an extra refinement for building connections and understanding your data.
Thank you so much, Robert. It's been a lot of information and I hope you've all found it very valuable. We've got the recording to go back over if you need to review anything. Thank you so much for your time, Robert. Thanks for joining us for our recorded version of NVivo for your literature review. Down below, you'll find a link for our feedback form. Please fill it out. It only takes a few minutes and it really helps us at the SCPA to support you in your postgraduate journey. We also have a link down below for an expression of interest for a closer consultation about NVivo for your research. So feel free to fill that out if you are using NVivo for your research and you feel you need more support. Thanks for joining us.